Hi.
Hello.
I'm delighted to have you, to be talking to you. And you are one of the CGA's rising stars this year for 2022. Woo! And all
That's crazy.
the casting directors voted you in. So congratulations.
Thank
Guys,
you.
so this is a pretty cash conversation about, where it all started, where it all began. Um,
Yes.
and, tell me a bit about you, like about the family and where you grew up and how it all started, what drove you.
So, so I was born in Mount Isa on a dusty, dusty day. No, I was I was I was born in Mount Isa. I was actually strangled by the umbilical cord. How
Really?
crazy is that? I almost died a couple of times. Yeah,
That day, that actual day.
yeah. My birthday's the day before Christmas. And I came out all wrapped up in the umbilical cord, and apparently, as they're taking me out, they're going.
And no brain damage. No brain damage.
um, Maybe. I don't know. Is there? I don't know. I mean, like, there's also lead in all the soil up there, so probably something a bit not right about me, but that's okay. Um,
And your family funny? Like your mum and dad funny? Are they?
oh my god, so funny. Like, but in really weird and different ways. Like, my mum is really cheeky, like really playful. She's the most playful person I know. Um, and my dad is hilarious, but like in that dad joke way. So funny. It's
Wow.
just hilarious.
And so what did your parents do? Like, and then how did you go to uni or did you go to finish school? What happened? How did
Yeah,
that?
so when I was about six, we moved to Brisbane. My parents had an engineering company, so they are very specialised. So they did like pumps and pump sets and stuff for big mining companies. Um, so dad was away a lot, and mum worked long hours, and so we always had this like the family focus was always like um, the family would do stuff together when we could. So they'd save up all year and then take us on a big international holiday every year for a couple of weeks. So we'd get this like, we didn't get to see them all the time because they were working hard, but we had this massive payoff where we'd go to like, for example, we went skiing in New Zealand every year for a couple of years. And then one year we went to bloody New York and Canada for skiing and to Singapore and Thailand. Like we did lots of cool things
I
that
can't,
made us all.
I can't imagine you
Yeah.
like yeah, like in ski wear. Ski.
I
I
know,
would
I
never
know,
pick you to be a skier. So you're
I
hard
know.
skier.
Oh, I was shocking at it too. I was so bad. But yeah, yeah. So that's what my parents did, and then um, I went to school. I went to uni. I dropped out very early. I went dropped out about 2.5 years through a 5.5 year degree. I was studying law and journalism. I had all these dreams that I was going to be this like human rights lawyer and get involved in advocacy and writing policy. And, I had this dream that I was going to be on like foreign correspondent and I was going to be this like hard hitting journalist that was on the front lines and all that sort of thing. Um, and that was fine. Like that was the dream, that was the plan. But it's just that when I was actually studying, I just absolutely fell out of love with any of it because I'm all about justice, and law is not about justice. It's about precedent and money. And I couldn't handle it. Like I really struggled with that. And I'm very much a person who is controlled by my principles. And so like principally I couldn't move past it. And I sort of had a bit of a breakdown and ended up traveling. I was like so anxious all the time and I couldn't get my anxiety in check. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, so I wouldn't leave the house, I wouldn't go to uni, and I was like, you know what? If you're scared, if it's just as scary to open the door and leave the house as it is to jump out of a plane, just jump out of the plane. Like if everything's scary, nothing's scary, right?
Yeah, great. Yeah.
And
And you pushed yourself. You pushed yourself to do it.
yeah,
Good on you, Steph.
thank you. Yeah, I ended up traveling. I went backpacking alone for 3.5 months with no accommodation booked. I was just like, just sort it out, like, you know, just figure out what I'm capable of. And um, it was the most amazing trip. And yeah, it changed my life forever because I ended up, it's like, I have these weird movie moments in my life, Anousha. Like, and, and this was one of them. This was my big, like, I don't know if I ever write a biography or whatever. This is like the big moment, you know. I uh I got kicked out of where I was staying. I'm not kicked out. I was staying with a friend, and I had to leave, and so I was stuck, and I had nowhere to go. Not a lot of money. I had no credit on my phone, and I was like nervous, but I was like, all right, this is exactly what I was looking for when I booked this trip. So I got in a cab, and I said, just take me to you know, take me to the train station. Get to the train station. I just go, you know what, man, next train anywhere. And he was like, he goes, you serious? I was like, it's not going to make a difference. Just the next train to anywhere under this amount of money. And he goes, all right, but run platform 3. I ran and I ended up in Leeds at like 7:30 at night. Well, no, must have been later than that. But I had nowhere to stay. And so I got a cab and I was like, you know, can you find some accommodation for me within blah, 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 you know? And I pulled up at this place just as she's turning around the sign saying closed. Not no vacancy, just closed, right? I was like a bed and breakfast, you know, before Airbnb, the actual B&Bs. And I was like it was the right price and everything. I'm like, can I please stay here tonight? Someone goes, sure. Go take your stuff upstairs and then come back down. I need to talk to you. And I was like, man, it's the first time I haven't felt anxious. I was feeling like buzzing, and I come back down. I'm like, I'm going to be in trouble. What's the point? Well, you know, like all cranky. I come back down and she goes, what's your story? And I was like, wait, what?
What story?
Yeah. I was like, I got this many brothers. Like, well, sorry, what do you want to know? And she goes, you've got a story to tell. I can see it. And I want to know what it is.
Wow.
I know, right? Like literally, this changed my life.
Wow.
It's like the ghost woman in a movie. You know,
Yeah.
when she like disappears, like she was never really there.
Yeah. Wow.
And yeah, and so I just stayed up until about 4 in the morning, talking to her, telling her everything I hadn't really told anyone, all the things that I'd been through that had really contributed to where I was, and like my mental health and stuff. And she was like, you know, I'm only 32 and I've lived in 7 different countries in my life, because every time that you get an opportunity, you know, the only thing you should ever say is why not? She went, we spent so many years, we spent so long thinking about the what ifs and the what's happened, and we're never present. And the world is different when you live in the present. And I was like, that's the best thing I've ever heard. And I
Wow.
got this tattoo the next day of a snowman saying, why not? 'Cause it was snowing outside in Leeds at the time.
Oh, wow.
And then for the rest of my trip, I was being like, yes, man, you know, the movie,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
but like, why not, woman? And I would meet people and I'd go, look, I have to say why not to everything. Is there anything you haven't done because you've been too scared to do? And people would be like, yeah, actually. And I did all these crazy things. And right at the end of it, I did this little tour around Ireland. And there was a heap of Australians on this tour. And one night, I'm just spinning yarns. One of them goes, Steph, you're so funny. You should do stand up. And I was like, you literally asked me to do anything else but that. I can't think of anything worse. And they're like, oh my God, actually, why not?
Why not? Yeah. Yeah. Say yes to everything. Okay.
And so I
That's
literally,
how it started. That's how it started.
I stood up in a random pub in Dublin.
Oh my God. God, Steph. How
Yeah,
nerve-wracking, and just rattled off stuff. You just talked,
just started talking.
and
Yeah,
didn't actually write it down, or did you prepare anything? You sort of had,
no.
oh my God.
And like I spoke to my friend who I was with when I did it. I was like, oh, here's some ideas, things I would say. And she's like, yeah, that's great. And then I walked in, I was like, look, guys, like it didn't do open mic. It was literally just a pub. And I was like, look, I'm living by this thing of why not? I have to do this. If I'm any good, buy me a drink. If I'm crap, I will definitely know by the silence. And then I just spoke and I had drinks waiting for me across the bar. And my friend was like, Steph, that was actually good. And yeah, I came home and did a couple of spots, but not many. And then last minute entered the competition, won it, and then moved to Scotland to do comedy so that I wasn't too ashamed to do it in front of my friends and family. And yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
came back and won the Deadly, the
No,
Deadly.
no, I won Deadly and then I moved to Scotland.
Oh, is that what you did? So, okay.
Yeah,
And then you went to Scotland. How long were you in Scotland for?
2 years.
Wow. So you completely left. I mean, you're pretty brave, Steph. That's pretty.
5 weeks after I won.
And did you feel what happened to your anxiety? I mean, do you still get anxiety?
Oh, I'm so anxious
Right,
all of the time.
right.
But that's the thing, like the only way to combat anxiety is to be brave
Yeah, yeah,
and to like to yeah, like if it like I said, if it's brave enough to just to open the door, then jump out, you know?
yeah. And do you get crippled by it sometimes, or you kind of go, okay, I'm just going to keep going? Yeah,
No, I absolutely get crippled by it.
yeah.
And I think like I don't know, it used to be really especially hard and it still can be at times. But I don't know, you just like and I've had several kind of like proper breakdowns where I end up like, quite agoraphobic and don't really leave the house. And it just always takes it's a little bit of a boot up the ass. And you
Yeah.
know, and then I can get back into that flow. And I think actually what becomes the problem is what's the word? Balancing my energy because I because of that anxiety, I think you're so driven by this sort of
Fight or flight kind of
yeah,
energy. Sort of on, yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You
that
need
it's
to,
like I can go until I'm forced to stop, but as soon as I stop, I'm like, you know,
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, talked to you probably for Total Control. That was probably your biggest acting gig, wasn't it? Like that you'd dab,
yeah.
you're such a natural, like you're just a natural born actor. Like, and everything you do is kind of just like bang, just nail it.
Ah, that's really lovely.
And
Thank
it's true.
you.
It's like you've just got this natural energy and you kind of nail all of that. I mean, how was that whole experience of your first big acting role like that?
Do I'll tell you something. I was just telling you before I wanted to be a human rights lawyer and an advocate and a policy writer and all that sort of thing. Like that's what I want to do. You know what I mean? Ever since I was a little girl, I wanted to be an actress, and I just knew that, or I just thought that people who look like me don't act. You know, and I just thought, oh no, that's a shallow world that I will never ever be able to break into. Um, and when it happened with Total Control, like I realized so many things, which was like, actually, this isn't like people who act aren't that shallow. I mean, they can be, but it's like it's just another way to tell a story. Like that is who I am to the absolute basic, basic thing of me. I'm a storyteller. And it's just an amazing way to tell a story, right? It's the most like immersive way to tell a story. And I think every time you're doing anything that's storytelling, you've got to walk in with a level of generosity. Like you have to be generous to the audience who's watching. And it's like, how do I do the best in this character? If I've been cast, then I have to put myself in this. This has to come from real pain. This has to come from real whatever. Otherwise, it's
Work.
not going to work.
You don't believe it. You don't buy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think like all that I kept on thinking was this is such an amazing opportunity. I have to put myself into this and I have to draw from things because we're telling something that matters. I was so passionate about the project. Um, but I think I always wanted to be an actress. I think it's funny, if you're somebody who observes the world a lot, it's kind of hard not to want to imitate it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
It's like I think because I'm an anxious person, and because of just all of the amazing experiences I had growing up, like I just feel like I had a when I was growing up was kind of like I sat on I straddled so many different things, being indigenous, like being mixed race, mum's Aboriginal, dad's white, and seeing them running a business, but also being an employee, and seeing what they went through to balance the family and all that sort of thing. I've got two gay brothers. I also am currently. I just had a girlfriend. Like I'm questioning my sexuality. My parents had an aid organization, so we used to travel to developing countries and put in water systems and stuff like that because that was my dad's expertise that he did in his job. And they were just like, oh, well, what's the point of earning money if it's not going somewhere? And so I just always had this like kind of, I was really lucky because I was able to see the flip side of so many things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean,
And like
your parents sound incredible, actually.
they
Enormous,
really are.
yeah, special people. And and
Yeah, they
and
are.
and two other brothers. Like, are they both
I've
all
got three brothers. I've
three
got
brothers?
three brothers.
So there's
Yeah,
four
there's
biological,
four of us. Yeah,
yeah. And they're still
yeah.
together. Parents are still together.
No,
Oh,
no, thank God.
because they
But they are,
much, yeah.
but they are best friends. They're the absolute weirdest couple. Like they're best friends in the whole world. They're like, I don't even understand them. Weirdos, but I adore them.
Yeah.
Um, but I
And
was really lucky because I just got to like, I got all of these different perspectives. Like, I think a lot of people don't get access to that many perspectives. You know what I mean? Like, I had my own lived experience and then the things that I was watching so closely. And I think, like, as an anxious person, like I said, like, um, you observe a lot. Like, you feel like you need to have control. The whole thing about anxiety is that fear of lack of control. And so you intently observe the world. And if you've had access to see so many different perspectives and, interesting characters, like my parents were very complicated people. They are very complicated people. Um, it was like, oh, cool. This feels like I know where to draw from this. And if I don't go as deep as I can to draw from it, then I'm not doing the story justice. And I believe in the story, and that's kind of my philosophy for acting.
does that feel sometimes a huge responsibility when you want to kind of be as flaky as you possibly can? I mean, if you want to be like, hello, like when you're doing Class of '07, which is pretty comedy, I mean, there's a depth
Yeah,
the next comedy show that you're doing, but it's
yeah,
pretty lightweight, funny, not too heavy kind of.
yeah.
Was that a bit easier, a bit lighter just to find the comedy?
No, it was actually harder because, oh my God, Anousha, I got very upset, very
What?
silly. I got upset for the silliest reason. Okay, so, um, I've played three different characters, right? And each of them is kind of a bit of a hard ass or a bitch. I'm a very soft, gentle human being. And I was like,
What's
how
wrong?
cross to people? Like, I
Why are
got
they
really
thinking this about me? Yeah.
yeah. And so I had to try and get myself in the space of being like angry, just because that if I wanted to do Phoebe justice in Class of '07, I had to be seething, like constantly seething, and that was really hard for me because I was like, I want to hug everyone, man. You know what I mean?
Well, I think because you're kind of strong and dynamic and a bit of a ball busting. Even though, look, same people think I'm scary, and I'm a big softie. I could cry all the time, but I think it's because you kind of got a sense of yourself. Because you've
Yeah,
got a very strong sense of justice. You've got a moral compass. You know exactly what you want.
yeah,
You're very hardcore about politics, like I am. So I
yeah,
think people go, "Oh shit, she's going to eat me alive." We're brown skinned women, like, oh, we're going to say
yeah,
the wrong thing. And fucking, yeah, right on, sister. Like,
yeah.
I'll bust your balls if you do. But,
But I wouldn't. I'd be like, come here, let me teach you.
oh, well, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I,
But no,
yeah.
yeah, I know what you mean.
You get to my
Um,
age, Steph, and you sort of go, nah, take him down, babe, take him
yeah.
down.
And your fight would not be
I
away.
know, I know. Someone had just kind of hit me in the head. I've never been in a fight in my life. I wouldn't know what to do.
Nobody would mess with you.
Well, yeah, I'm a little knuckered. I think people think I'm much bigger when they meet me and they go, oh, she's only about that. She's like a midget with a big mouth. So
Oh,
how are you feeling about the next part of your life? Like, are you feeling like you want to keep going and have a break, or are you going to do more comedy, or do you still
I
act?
actually have made a very specific um, thing in my head that I want to move away from comedy to move more into um, a space where I can really control the stories that I'm telling. So I really want to be acting more, and I want to be writing more. I want to write in whatever capacity that is. I think comedy for somebody that is somebody like me, I'm very emotional. I'm trying to move things and change the world. Like I'm a bit too driven by that like idealism and that sense of justice and sometimes to the point where it's not realistic. But you need to be, if you're in this space, right? You cannot be a realist or whatever. You have to be idealistic if you want to move things and make things happen. It's like that saying, those who think they're crazy enough to change the world are the ones who will. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and I think with comedy, what I'm finding, and I still do it, every now and then, but certainly the commercial element of comedy I want to walk away from. Um, I think what I used to love about comedy was that I was just like, it was me and the audience, and it was just, you could build a nuance with silences in an audience, with a look. Um, and I think doing it for TV is kind of taking that away a little bit. And I had a special come out on Channel 10 that I got a lot of backlash from, and I really wasn't prepared for it. I didn't know it was going to happen, and it kind of made me think about, you know, I was really trying to push the envelope, and I think in that space, when you're just operating in that space, I didn't think about whether my community was actually ready for it, like whether it would be classified as offensive to my own people. I just wanted to make a point to white people, and it really hurt me to realize I was really disconnected like that. And I did. I offended my own people. I crossed the line I shouldn't have crossed, and um, it broke my heart. Like, absolutely destroyed me. And I was like, I can't exist in a space where intention doesn't matter. Like, that was really hard for me. And because of the speed, the comedy's back, it's instantaneous. You can't build nuance, you can't build intent, you can't build love the same way that you can in a story where it's evolving. It's like you have to find the quickest way to get to the punchline to make the point you're trying to make. And for example, an example of something that my people found really, or that people reached out to me and said, that's not funny, why are you making people laugh at this, was this country sorely, this was the joke. I said, this country sorely needs representation. Thank fuck we've got it in the prison systems, because we ain't got it anywhere else. And it's like, obviously the point
Yeah.
is we laugh at the things that are painful.
Yeah.
But, you can understand that if somebody who's not having a good day, or who's struggled, with incarceration their whole life, hears that, they go, yeah, I get what you're trying to do, but
It's a fine line between being sort of this new PC woke kind of thing where you can't offend or say things, which is,
yeah,
what you're saying is true. And you kind of,
yeah,
okay, and it's supposed to be comedy, but then you're
yeah.
offending because you kind of, everyone's woke and offended by
But,
that.
but it's just also like, I think what's funny is that had I done that just for an Indigenous audience, that would have been
Yeah.
fine. I
Yeah.
think it's when you see white people laughing at those things, and
Yeah.
I wanted them to laugh. I wanted them to get like a, oh, but I
Yeah.
can imagine watching without knowing my intentions. Do you know what I mean?
Totally, and I get that because I went years ago. I went to Nick Giannopoulos' Wogs Out of Work or whatever. It was a big at the Enmore Theatre, and it was like 3,000 brown skinned, Greek Italians, me,
Yeah,
and I felt like I was with my people for the first time. It was the 80s, and he was doing joke after joke about being wogs, and it was kind of ironic. It was I was always
yes,
offended by being called a wog by white people, but then if
yeah,
you're with your people and you're kind of doing that, then and there was no white people in the audience. It was like, okay, we've got the joke, it's our joke, and then
mm-hmm.
it became sort of the wider white, and it was kind of, again, they were calling everyone wogs. I kind of went, I'm offended now. Like, I don't, you can't claim this word. You're not claiming this fucking, So I
Yeah,
know exactly, and it's sort of, it's the same thing because, yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
yeah. And so his intentions for that would have been great,
Of
but
course.
you don't get to decide what an audience does with what you've done. And comedy was just like, when that all kind of happened, I went, oh my God, I had all of these ideas, and I was trying to follow in the footsteps of like Americans who were reclaiming slurs and being right on the edge, and but I don't get to decide how my stuff gets received, and if it was the wrong time, it was the wrong time. But it made me just realize that, like, I'm just I'm not ready to tell the story. It's not about the people aren't ready to hear it, because a lot of people did hear it and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to
Yeah.
tell the story
Yeah.
because I'm too sensitive
Yeah.
to not build in nuance. I desperately need that understanding. Like, I want people to know that my heart is in the right place. And if I couldn't if I couldn't handle a little bit of criticism, then it's not my story to tell yet.
Yeah, exactly, Steph. And that's great. That's great. And you can
Mm.
do it other ways, until you're ready
Yeah,
to go, okay, I know exactly where my
and that's why I think acting and writing, like, you've got more space, you've got more time, there's subtlety. It's not all about that punchline. It's about the feeling. Like, you have so many more devices to use to elicit a response, to get somebody to, you're asking them to be in your position. You're not telling them what to feel. You are inviting them to feel empathy. And I was like, that's the space I need to occupy at the moment.
yeah, and you can manipulate in that way, in a sort of clever way. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. Um, so advice. I'm sort of coming to an end, but advice on to other Indigenous girls particularly. What would be your advice for people starting, Indigenous women starting in this biz?
Um, oh my God, I don't even know. I feel like don't just apply for things that are for Indigenous women. Um, and always be looking yourself, as well as having an agent that looks for things for you. I think that's really important. Be self-driven, because you might find something that you go, this is really good for me, that your agent might not. Like, find an agent that really understands you, that you have a great relationship with. But that'll be the big thing. Don't think that you are just in a box.
Yeah, categorize that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and know what you want to have.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And actually, something that I feel like I've been learning that maybe is different, or something that I'm noticing when I'm working with other people, like on set, is like, obviously I came from a different background. I came from comedy, and I'd been on the other side where I've done the writing and I've worked with producers on that side. And so I had this real, like, kind of maybe stupidly open relationship with producers, where I was like, hey, this is what I thought of the character, like, just straight off the bat, because in my mind I go, well, when I was the writer, I know that that's important. You know what I mean? And it's probably a bit entitled. You can be polite about it, whatever. Um, I just kind of was like, yeah, if you're the one inhabiting the character, you better have it known what you think that character requires, because otherwise nobody's quite happy. If they've hired you to do the job, it's because of what you bring to that character.
yeah,
And whatever that means for you, if you see the character has a slight quirk that you need to have shown, or whatever it is, like, that's something important. That's what makes something feel real life, right?
yeah, exactly. And so, what
Mm.
would be your dream role if someone said, okay, this is what I'm going to do? What would you like to play?
Deb Mailman in a biopic.
She'd love that too. You
No,
could.
I don't know. Something really serious. I think I would really like a really dramatic role. Um, something just everybody, like, comedians are the most depressed, sad, anxious weirdos in the world. Um, and we spend our whole lives showing that side to the world. The opposite side of that to the world. Um, and life is all about light and shade. And I think a lot of comedians don't get to show that darkness that sits beyond that. And
What's
I would love a role
like that?
where I got to operate across both of those.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think comedians? What's with that whole theory that they're just
The way that I describe it to people is like, okay, so the physiology is exactly the same if you're having a panic attack before you jump out of a plane as it is person going, yes, this is exciting. It's the same physiology and a different thought pattern, right? And if you're a really anxious person or you're a depressed person, everything feels like an effort. That physiological feeling that you get before stage is the most in control you can be of that feeling,
right?
right?
Yeah,
So it's like it's a very powerful feeling for somebody who is so anxious. That's what I think. And then I also think it's this weird thing of, like, I mean, it's all about getting approval, right? It's this
stroking.
tension. It's stroking the ego. But I also think it's the most vulnerable that you can be in the least intimate setting. You know,
Yeah,
there's people who know you and like you, and they want you to succeed, and you get to decide exactly who they see. So it's a control thing,
Yeah, right. Interesting. Yeah,
I
interesting.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, spot on, Steph. All right. Well, I reckon we're done
So,
unless
all right, off now. All right, bye.